My dear brothers and sisters, Palm Sunday is quite unique because it is the only Mass within the liturgical year that has two Gospels. The first Gospel is proclaimed at the beginning of the celebration during the blessing of the palms, and the second Gospel is the narrative of the Passion of Jesus. And I'm not sure if you have observed it, that in these two Gospels, there were a lot of shouting. Sa dalawang ibanghelyong narinig natin sa ating pagdiriwang ngayon, puro sigawan. Nagsisigawan ang mga tao. The first Gospel is about the entry of Jesus into the holy city of Jerusalem. And as he entered Jerusalem, people showed up and welcomed him as a king, as the Messiah. They carried palm branches, they laid their cloaks on the path of Jesus, and they were shouting with joy, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest." Yan ang kanilang sigaw. Nagagalak sila na tanggapin si Jesus. Naghuhumiyaw sila sa saya sa pagpasok ni Jesus sa Jerusalem. Hosanna sa anak ni David. Pinagpala ang naparirito sa ngalan ng Panginoon. Hosanna. But in the second Gospel, the narrative of the Passion of the Lord, there were also people shouting, not out of joy, but because of anger, envy, and hatred. They were shouting, "Crucify Him." Yan na ang kanilang sigaw. Nawala na yung saya, nawala na yung galak at pagsalubong. Ang isinisigaw na nila mula sa galit sa kanilang puso, ipako siya sa krus. The first Gospel was very much in line with what St. Paul tells us in our first reading today. Let every knee bend in the heavens, on the earth, and under the earth, and every tongue proclaim, every tongue cry out that Jesus is Lord. While our first reading today is very consistent with the gospel narrative of the Passion of Jesus. Jesus is that suffering servant described by the prophet Isaiah. He was maltreated, he was maligned, he was tortured, he was rejected and despised. My dear brothers and sisters, the first shout was a sign of joy, welcome, while the second was a sign of abhorrence. The first was about recognition of who Jesus is. The second was about condemnation. Dalawang magkaibang isinisigaw ng mga tao. Sigaw ng pagpupuri, sigaw ng pagtanggap, Hosanna sa anak ni David. At yung ikalawa, sigaw ng pagkutya, sigaw ng paghuhusga, sigaw ng galit at inggit, ipako siya sa krus. They wanted to get rid of Jesus. They wanted him dead. And so they shouted, "Crucify him." My dear brothers and sisters, these two are still very much present even in our times. Even now, we could hear people shouting, "Hosanna," expressing their faith and belief in Jesus. But there are also those who shout, "Crucify him," because they do not believe in Jesus and they want to get rid of him. Hanggang ngayon, nandyan pa rin ang mga sigaw na yan. Maaaring nasa ibang paraan lamang ng pagpapahayag, pero palakasan pa rin ang sigaw. May mga sumisigaw ng, "Hosanna, ipagbunyi si Jesus." Pero may mga sumisigaw din naman ng ipako siya sa krus. Kailangan siyang mawala sa mundong ito. You know, these past days, I have been hearing these two voices. Nitong mga nakalipas na araw, narinig natin ang isang tinig na ipinagbubunyi, ipinaglalaban at pinupuri si Jesus. Our Apostolic Administrator, Bishop Abilio, has been very firm about the conviction that our faith is essential. He was maligned. He was tortured in a way by social media, by many voices, but he remained firm in shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David." But you know, there are also many other voices trying to overpower his voice because they are shouting out, "Crucify him. Get rid of Jesus. He is not important. He is not essential." We are celebrating this year the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Christianity in the Philippines. And during this year, we are challenged to all the more be proud of our faith. Ipagmalaki yung ating pananampalataya kay Jesus. Maaaring sinasabi natin, oo, nananampalataya tayo kay Jesus. Pero ipahayag din natin, ipakita natin yung ating pananampalataya sa Kanya. Jesus is important, but the expressions of our faith in Him are equally important. Sa mundo ngayon, parang nababaliktad na. Ano ba yung ating isinisigaw? Ano ba ang iyong isinisigaw? Ano ba ang isinisigaw ng buhay mo? Hosanna o ipako siya sa krus? Maraming sumisigaw ng yung business is important. Economy is important. Industry is important. Work and livelihood are important. And we cannot forgo of them. They are essential. Babagsak tayo kung papabayaan natin ang mga ito. Pero si Jesus, ang simbahan, ang pananampalataya, parang hanggang ngayon, pwedeng iisang tabi at mabaliwala. Ano ba ang tinig na ating isinisigaw? Hosanna bilang pagmamalaki ng ating paniniwala kay Jesus, o ipako siya sa krus? Okay lang na mawala. Okay lang na isang tabi. Today, my dear brothers and sisters, we begin Holy Week, the most important week for us Christians. And it is sad that for the second time, you cannot come to church and physically celebrate the Holy Week services because of the danger of the virus. But even with the restrictions, and even with those who try to suppress the faith and our expressions of faith, we could still shout out loud, Hosanna to Jesus. And let us shout loud so that we could overpower those who shout, crucify Him. Mga Kristiyano, mga Katolikong Pilipino, maaari po bang lakas-lakas na naman natin yung pagsigaw natin ng Hosanna sa anak ni David? Maaari bang lakas-lakas na naman natin yung ating paninindigan at pagmamalaki sa ating pananampalataya at pagpapahayag nito upang matabunan ng ating mga boses ang mga sumisigaw ng ipako siya sa krus. Even though you cannot go to church this week, even though we cannot be together to celebrate this important week, you could still proclaim your faith in Jesus in many ways, in many creative ways. Let us shout out to the whole world that we need Jesus, that we believe in Jesus, that Jesus is essential, that the church is essential, that we need Jesus and the church, and without them, we do not have life.